Did you take in anything from the Senate hearing on NIL yesterday?
This is stupidity. I mean, it's like they can't even control what they got. Like, you got one guy who's talking about it's chaos. Who's like, come on, anybody who's pays 1% attention to what goes on in our political forum, you know, you have no business talking about that when you got a clown show going and you know, in that forum. Mm-hmm. So no, I mean,
because then what? Then why are there some people in power in
because they're
college
a bunch of
football?
jackasses.
Well, I mean,
you have this thing where you have the ratings have been sky high for college football. There's been way more interest in college football now than in over this 5-year stretch.
I would agree with
peaking.
That. Yes,
but you have people who they're clowns. They are clowns. Why? Like, it's embarrassing that they're actually in positions of power. But the idea that they're wading in on, they don't know what they're talking about.
So then why again, Greg Sankey and others in power saying, hey, let's see what Congress has to say?
I don't
know. Because
I think they're uncomfortable with the power dynamic of how it's starting to play out. I mean, there are people in positions of power in college football who are talking about things like revenue sharing and things that are that are awkward and uncomfortable for some, not all, but some of the positions in leadership. I mean, it's a sport that has no real leadership at the top. Now, why they would turn to something else that has bizarro leadership is ridiculous to me.
Well, because I guess they are the federal authorities and can somehow potentially pass legislation that does make something uniform when they're desperate for uniformity. You know what I mean? And so that I understand. That's why I'm saying, you know, that way everything's going with realignment, the way everything's going with television contracts, they're the true powers, right? The people who are running Fox Sports and ESPN.
Yes, that is
right.
Exactly
like that
right.
is the true power right now that school presidents listen to, and
because that's where the money is, right?
Exactly. This is where the money is. So that's why I'm saying that you get a bunch of schools that are like-minded, that have partnerships. I mean, the Big Ten just gave the commissionership to a former CBS sports executive. I know Tony Petitti for years. And so, Greg Sankey's done deals with Tony Petitti. So you get a bunch of people together in a room, figure out who's in the boat, who gets to be, relegated to start, who can come back in the boat, and you create a new construct where you come up with your own rules that can pass Supreme Court muster for the NIL. That's what I'm saying.
Let's put that aside for a minute.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of rules that I think frustrate college football coaches at a high level that sometimes get made by people who are not playing the same game, or they're not even really involved in the game, but that's how the NCAA is structured. And I think there is, some of the people I talk to who are in the sport are like, hey, we need to get them out of the mix.
Who's them?
Them is the NCAA. Because it is a completely different dynamic than what happens for women's volleyball or softball or track or, these other sports are just not the same. They don't travel the same. They don't operate the same.
They
don't make anywhere near the same money.
Uh-huh.
And so to have, or you have like Division II schools or FCS schools, wading in on this, it's not logical. Right. So you will have, I heard you say this before, 64. I don't know if it's 68. It's right now, it's not a neat number to sort out, hey, this is how we're going to run it. We're going to have some form of revenue sharing. Mm-hmm. We're going, whether it's Greg Sankey or Tony Petitti, my guess is it would probably be one of those two people who would be the Goodell of this new entity. And then I think your officiating is uniform. A lot of other things are more uniform. Scheduling is uniform.
You're right.
Yes. And I think, look, there's a football coach I know well who's working in college, who knows the NFL model really well. We have talked about this a lot. And I think it will at some point get there because it's more logical. Now, the other stuff you're bringing in from this week, I just sit there and I'm like, these are buffoons. Like, they don't know any, like, it's theater to them.
Yeah.
Like, it's theater. It's like, we don't need to have those jackasses involved in this process.
Especially since many of them just walk off the hearing floor and go do a podcast. It's But that's for a different day and a different time. But I just wanted to get your 2 thoughts on all of that. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.